person?
Yeah,
yeah.
Ask one of us. We gotta answer it.
Oh, okay, got you. We'll do it. We'll do it for you.
Okay.
What holiday traditions are important to you that you'd like us to keep going into the future?
Ooh.
Back after this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Holiday traditions that I want to keep going forward. I don't know. None. I don't really celebrate like big holidays in my family because I just grew up with a single parent. I always thought it was strange that people like set like a whole entire day, like Christmas or someone's birthday, to like give them love and like give them presents and give them things. Because like growing up with just my dad, like we did that all the time. Like if sometimes I would come home and I'd be like, brand new bike or like my favorite cake, and my dad's, and it wasn't like, oh my god, what happened? Like what's today? That was just like normal in my family. So friends would come over and they're like, oh wow, is it your birthday? And I was like, no. They're like, why do you have this like beautiful birthday cake? And I was like, it's not a birthday cake. It's just a cake that my dad made because he knows I loved it. And I don't know, like cupcake, like just weird things like that.
Yeah.
They weren't weird to me. It was more weird when other people would be like, oh, I got all this stuff for my birthday, but like would never get anything else throughout the year. And I'm like, that's so weird to me.
Yeah.
Like your family only loves you that one day of the year. Like, you're only special to people on that one day. I guess maybe like moving forward, I would hope that people would normalize that, like telling people that they love them and giving them hugs and giving them gifts and giving them cards and bringing them their favorite things just because like you love them. It doesn't matter if it's their birthday or fucking Tuesday. That is what it is, right?
I love that. Yeah.
What about you? Did you have traditions growing up?
Yeah, I did have many traditions. Slightly complicated. So before the age of 11, it was very much, the usual, I was loved once every now and again, but depending on the holiday, as you would put it. So birthdays, yada, yada, yada. I have a twin sister, so we always did our birthday together. So that was always like a thing that we knew would happen, where they would always dress us in similar outfits and we hated it. And that was a thing. And then Christmas time, when I was younger as well, was always this really extravagant thing that happened. My dad, loved Christmas. So we had very, Hallmark Channel Christmases where it's there was a giant tree and blah, 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 blah. And we'd walk downstairs and it'd be, just obnoxious amounts of... And half the stuff was, from the Dollar Tree or whatever. But, it didn't matter. It just was, a bunch of stuff for us to play with. And then my dad died when I was 11. And then my mother and I kind of fell out with each other. So I didn't really have holidays after that.
At 11? Or
yeah.
Later on as you got a little older?
No, at 11. That just was a big riff in my family in general. So I didn't really celebrate holidays after that, really for anything. And then as I got older, I started creating my own holiday things when I was around 22 or 23. Every year, me and my sister, we make hot chocolate, we do gingerbread houses, and we watch Last Holiday. And it's a very specific ritual that happens every year.
Do you eat those gingerbread houses or you just make them?
So, I say make them. It's more like we get high and we try to make them and then we give up. But the attempt happens every year. It's a thought that counts. Yeah. We get halfway through it and we're just not good at this.
Mine has a dumpster.
Is it just you and your twin sister? Or do you have more siblings?
Another complicated... So, okay, I'm not going to lie to you. Everything about my life is a complicated question. Another complicated question. So, I found out that I was actually adopted when I was 18 or 16 or 17. And I met or then realized at that time that I had actually 11 brothers and sisters.
Oh, my.
All in different parts of the country. So, there's two sisters that I have that live in... Kansas City area that I met when I was 18, 19. So and then everyone else, I have many, many brothers and sisters that I've just never met, that I've just seen pictures of. Actually, I think that I have 3 sisters in Kansas City. So we all get along and it's fun and I like them and love them and things of that nature. We're not as close as my twin sister, obviously because I grew up with my twin sister.
Yeah.
So.
But that's a big family to
Yeah, my mom was a whore.
Just have overnight.
Yeah.
Whores are paid.
Yeah, no,
sex work is real work.
That is valid. No, she wasn't. She wasn't a professional.
Oh yeah, I know. What you
she
mean.
just was, happy and yeah.
She was.
She was just doing things.
Yeah.
She was just doing things.
Enjoying herself.
Yeah, and I say that with every bit of like. I think that I had a very traumatic experience with my mother and father, so it's a joke to help my tension break, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Is more of how I say that, not in the idea that I actually know anything about her life.
Yeah, it's just it's a way for you, like you said, to release that tension.
Yeah,
anxiety
for myself, so I don't have to like actually delve through those emotions every time someone asks me. It's weird because even like sometimes the police like they'll question my last name and then I have to go through like my whole like history and my birth thing and blah blah blah, and then like or when I go to the doctor's office and they're like your last name's Brown, your mom blah blah blah, and I have to like go through all of this backstory constantly.
So when you're talking about that backstory, is that something that is it because of your race? And they don't like. What do you mean by your last name and their?
So
I mean, without saying your last name on if you don't want to.
It just kind of depends on the scenario. Sometimes it's for insurance purposes, and they need to know who my mother is because I have insurance through my mother. Mm-hmm. Also, you have to realize too that. Amongst black people, when black people meet each other in social settings, a lot of times there's a very quick chemistry because we realize each other's struggle. Mm-hmm. So when I say a name, if that somehow resonates with them or they think they know someone, it is very tradition, especially if that person is older than you, for them to be like, oh, who's your mom? Who's your whatever? Because like even my adoptive family is huge. Like just huge. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So they think that they know someone, blah, 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 blah. So, trying to explain to people without having to go into my history, but like explain to them lightly why I'm not related to whoever they think they may know me as or see me from or think they might have a connection to me somehow, if that makes sense, is just an ongoing situation in social settings, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like with the police, it's sometimes more or less like, actually this just happened like 3 weeks ago. It was just completely random. Like the police showed up to my house because there's like a missing persons case on someone with my last name and they thought this person was possibly my brother. And like I'm literally not related to anyone with my last name because I was adopted. Like they're not my bloodline, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like that's a thing, and sometimes it has to do with I had a lot of issues when I was younger because she was traumatized and also wild. So there's all sorts of cases and things that were going on in my youth that sometimes still just kind of come back. As like oh, did you finish this? Oh, did you do this? Oh, did you, like, is this taken care of now? Because it's all, like, in the past, but it's still, like, it's something that comes up in any, like, documentation, and you have to go to the court, you have to blah, 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 blah. And so you have to explain all of these things as to, why am I no longer going by that name? Why do I have this alias? Why do blah, 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 blah. And so there's just all of that sort of, like, thing that comes with just that sort of like part of my life. Yeah.
I want to touch back on that because there's a book that I just started, which has a conversation in there, which I thought, which is sort of what I was getting to. So I do want to ask if this is something that you experienced. But before we do that, I want to introduce ourselves and you to our viewers. Yeah,
all the people.
Right. So we're live.
Yeah.
So, right. So I'm Wes with KC Care, and joined by...
I'm Ace with Woody's KC, and we have a special guest today.
KiKi, Uchawi, or Victor Leon with myself and Missy B's and Victor Leon Entertainment and all of the other things. So, yes.
All the things.
All the things.
Yes. Busy.
Yes.
Well, when you were talking about your name and identification and being questioned on that, right? I just started a book by Isabel Wilkerson called Cast, and in it, one of the stories that she shares about being questioned about her name and her race was she was a reporter for the New York Times. She was doing an interview with a white individual, she had been doing interviews all day, and she was getting ready to interview him, and he was running late and everything. And so she went out to meet him. When he came in, it was just her and him. And he told her, I can't be bothered right now. I have a very important interview with somebody. And she was like, that's me. That's who you have the interview with. And so he didn't believe her. He's like, do you have a business card? She's like, it's been all day. I've given out all my cards. So he said, do you have an ID? And so she showed him her driver's license. And he said, do you have something with the New York Times on it? And she was like, it's only us here. Like, obviously, I'm the person you made the appointment with. Who else would be coming up to you? And he said, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I have somebody from the New York Times who's going to be here, and they're very important to interview me. And so she said, bye. She grabbed her stuff and left. And she, wrote the story based on that, and she included that in her book. And that was, she sees it as, because she is a black woman, she wasn't seen as somebody who would be in that important role, as a person who would be interviewing him. And so when you were talking about your ID and name, that's where I thought that connection was, because I just read that yesterday. And so that's where I was like thinking, I wonder if you've experienced that. And so that was where I was like going with that question.
I mean, I think that's very relevant. Still, I think that's relevant for many brown people in any sense of power. Because even in circles that, we feel are maybe more liberal or more aware, there is still just like such an ingrained sense of what we're used to, the idea of professional being, that the moment that someone in power maybe relaxes themselves, like the day that I have 5 meetings and shows and phone calls and everything like that, and I'm running around and I just have sweats, a t-shirt, a snapback, and coffee.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a little bit more harder for me to be taken seriously when I have to then go, have those conversations. I personally have not necessarily experienced that specific type of thing. But also because, I haven't experienced that sort of thing in my professional career. There was a period of time in Kansas City where I was homeless for about 4 years. And so I experienced that many, many, many times because people thought I was exactly what I was. And so when I finally, was able to get more of my life together and more pieces of my things together, being aware of that social stigma against me and also being aware of where I came from, I personally have just never fully walked out the house or in any environment where I wasn't always putting my step foot forward, because it is something that is so that I am so scared of happening or preventing me from getting the work that I want to get done, just because of of this social stigma that may or may not be in place. So there's a lot of emotional weight there that happens, I think, with many brown people, myself included, knowing that I just can't step out the house, and just whatever.
You have to have some, it's like armor.
But also I try very, very hard to counterbalance that, just because I know what's out there. I know the type of people that I may or may not have to have conversations with. And my business works on sometimes a very, very liberal side and sometimes a very conservative side, depending on what needs to be done. Because I'm an entertainer, and that, sometimes even though the Missouri State Fair is not necessarily a conservative group of people that plan that, you also have to just be aware of the people that are going to be there and the things that you might be in danger if you don't present yourself in a certain way. And that's one of the things that I personally have to accept as a fact of my professional life, and I just very actively try to avoid those scenarios.
Mentally prepare yourself for that? I mean, it seems such a hard thing to get ready for. I think for many people of color and of indigenous backgrounds that have to do this for so long, for so many years, I think it becomes second nature. I think it becomes something that when you have to get up every morning and do it every single day because of your career or whatever it is that you do for a living, and you do that thing for years and years and years, you know what I mean?
I think that is something that you know that you're doing it, but becomes so second nature to you that it's not much more of a thought. It's something that, okay, this is how this works, and then you move on to the next goal.
That makes me think of, like for myself, like the years I spent living in the closet and not, living out and open of who I am, that creating that image or maintaining an image of who I want to be or protecting myself in that sense so I don't feel that judgment from other individuals, or I don't feel that that's the closest. I mean, it's not the same, but it's the closest like for myself that would be where I feel like there's that imagery beside it.
I think that in general, maybe along with 3 or 4 other scenarios, there's only a few different scenarios of anything that I can think of that kind of would even slightly resemble the type of emotional toll that takes on a person.
Yeah.
I think that's just a very rare thing, and I think that is why, so many people, when they are really aware of these things and they study these things and things of that nature, it's much easier for them to connect with other types of people that go through the same struggles.
So, you are the show director for Miss CDs, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big step forward, especially in our community. It was a white individual who was a show director, so there's been a change in that process. So having that level of responsibility and I would say like a community leadership, at least for the community that you're representing, like how does that feel for you as a transition from where you were, in that build up to it?
Honestly, for me, it doesn't feel necessarily too different.
Mm-hmm.
I live in 2 separate worlds. I live in a magic and hypnosis world of people that just know me as Victor that does magic or that does the shows and the things.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in the world of drag, which is a fairly new world for me because I've been doing magic since I was 8.
Wow.
So
awesome.
Like comparatively, this is a newer cake that I'm trying to bake.
Right.
I just came up with that terminology. I like it. But with that said, as a magician, I've produced many shows for many different types of festivals, for many theaters, for cruise ships. I've produced many different shows. So the show directing aspect, or putting together and producing shows even on a weekly basis, is not anything that's new or daunting for me. So it doesn't feel like my professional life is doing anything different. It's just drag queens as opposed to magicians. But between you and me, they're both just as catty. You know what I mean? So it's like
there's magic and illusion in both.
It's very similar BARPOC. And most people don't know, but also most magicians are a little flamboyant in themselves too. So you're dealing with the same sort of archetype of a person.
Yeah.
And so I'm not really daunting by that. Like that doesn't feel any different. It's just another thing that needs to be in the wheelhouse of things that I have to do every week.
So you have, I'm gonna jump in real quick. So you have been doing magic since 8.
Yes.
Since you're 8 years old. How
idea.
long have you been doing drag, female impersonation? What prompted that to jump over?
For maybe 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. So I was doing many college magic shows, circa 2014 or 15 or so. And one of my mentors, who I have known for years before this as well, he has a show in Las Vegas. He's a drag queen that also does magic in the Planet Hollywood. And so I'd already known that this was sort of a thing. That there's other people that's done this sort of thing. And the idea that they did drag, but they maybe also did magic. Like Kashetta who was a drag queen in Las Vegas, had a show for 8 years before she died in 2012 or so. And so when I was doing these college shows, I started having event people that would hire me and be like, "Yeah, we really like that one magic show you did last year. We want to have you back, but we usually like to have different type of entertainment. Is there a different show that you would do?" And I am not one that I am necessarily I don't pretend to act any amount of butch at all in magic shows. In fact, I think it's much funnier for my audience to be myself. And so I had a few event organizers that asked me, would you ever do this in drag? That seems like a fun show. And so I had enough of them ask me it that I decided that I would give it a try. So my first drag magic show, so I first started off doing drag magic, like magic shows in drag, with my first drag name, which was Victoria LaFame, because it was a play on Victor Leon, and it was also a play on Victor Victoria. It was a whole thing. And that was in Columbia, Missouri, for a high school, and then the day after for Yin Yang Nightclub the day after.
That's fun.
And so that was my first like drag performance, and then I took it to Missy's as an early show that we did, a little drag magic show, which was also my first performance at Missy's. But I'd also worked at Missy's for a little bit before as a go-go boy, which did not go well for me because I like clothes. Not that I have anything against go-go boys. I just found out that wasn't a part of my manifestation of art.
Yeah.
But I tried it because, try everything once.
I agree.
Sometimes twice.
Make sure you like it. Make sure you did.
Maybe it was the person. I don't know.
So yeah, I did that, and then as I started to do more drag, or as I started to delve more into that, I kind of realized that I kind of like the art form of drag. And this is somewhat very controversial, but so I do not like drag for the concept of drag. Like, I'm not inherently in love with drag. I don't love makeup. I don't love
Is that what you would like call
the
concept of drag is female impersonation, that illusion?
Not even necessarily that. I think the concept of drag is that some people have a very specific part of them that somehow just flourishes more in themselves when they're in drag.
That makes sense.
If that makes sense. Like it feels more like something that they cannot live their complete life without this art form. If that makes sense, because it lets them explore different parts of themselves. I don't have that. My take on drag is very character driven and performance driven. Because that's why I stepped in it, and I just keep doing it because it's fun for me to explore those different atmospheres of characters.
That's such an interesting topic because I feel like a little bit like you look at some of the people like that think the heart of drag and what's going on in our culture really has set a precedence with like RuPaul. But I feel like even like RuPaul like is like that as well, like very performance, like doesn't prefer to go out and drag, will only do it if they're getting paid. Like that's just a part of the performance and art, but that they don't need to do that.
It's not intrinsically doing anything for their soul.
Yeah.
And that's very
it's
much
not taking away either.
It's
not how they identify.
I think drag. I think everyone should do drag at least once. I think it helps you learn a lot about yourself.
Bitch, walking around some heels for a few hours, you will learn a lot. And your friends will learn a lot about you, and you'll learn like a lot.
Very, 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 very that. So I just found that it wasn't anything that was intrinsic to me. I liked doing it for the sake of, I like art. Like when I was in high school, I always played just the zany. I always wanted to be the old man or the crazy one in the rocker or the little kid, or like I always wanted to be that weird character, and drag gives me that sort of fulfillment.
I want to ask you a little bit about, so you started off and you did a little bit of drag and you were Victoria LaFame.
Yeah.
How does the evolution come up to, where did KiKi Uchawi come in? And I know that, I'm asking you this too, just because not only I want to get a little bit, like really deep into a little bit, I mean like, I have been here for 5 years. I think that we met at the very beginning when I first came here. You did some magic at Woody's for an event that me and Wes threw, which is weird because I forget sometimes that we worked together at Woody's. Like, we bartended together for like a year or two. Like I forget that because we've just been friends and everything. But I wanted to get into that a little bit. And like, how does this wonderful creative person working for these, fairgrounds and events and cruise ships and all these things jump up into Victoria LaFame and then go on to be KiKi Uchawi and then go on to be like a Missy show director? But also what I really love is that you have a couple of drag daughters, correct?
Yeah.
Like where did that transition come from, Victoria into KiKi, and like how did that manifest for you? So,
very somewhat personal topic, but I'll share it because it's I think it's important. So when I was doing magic for many years, So you gotta remember, I found out that I was adopted. Okay. All of my adoptive family are very brown people, and I know that I'm somewhat brown and to some extent. My sister's very, very dark. My twin sister, but I always had a little bit of I always questioned it. Was I maybe half? Was she really my twin sister? I didn't really trust my family that much. I had a lot of those issues going on in my life. And so two things happened when I started drag. I am not naturally a very feminine person, just in general. I'm not. And so when I started drag, it let me accept the femininity that I do have, or maybe display that version of myself more willingly. Even though it's not inherent to me, it felt comfortable to be able to do it in a safe environment. And also, I grew up in drag when I first started, in a show with Krista Collins and Molten Decadence and Angel and, Widow and, Iman and all of these other people. I was surrounded by very, very proud and people that were very, very proud to be brown and be authentic to their culture. And that is not experience that I had as a magician, because I don't know the last time you saw a brown magician, but there are very few.
Yeah. Or magicians in general are, in my experience, very, niche, maybe not so upfront kind of genre of entertainment anymore.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
And then the person of color on top of that is 100% like...
I can't think of a black magician.
Yeah. So, and there are quite a few, but they're very, very, very few and far in between in the grand scheme of how many just magicians there are. So that's not something that I had ever had in my life. So when starting drag, starting it accidentally just for the sake of the shows and the things I was doing for the colleges, and then finding at Missy's that sort of place where I could commune myself with other brown artists. It was the first time in my life that I was surrounded by brown artists. I wasn't surrounded by that in any other of the art forms that I had done. And also explore sort of my femininity and more of my comedy too. I'm a professional comedian is what I am. Between hypnosis shows, magic shows, drag shows, that's actually my trade.
It's just like whatever the night produces. Like, you're a comedian at heart, but is that me in a wig? Is that me hypnotizing someone? Is that me just telling jokes on stage? Is that me being in a dress? Like,
well, it's very
very smart to know.
Job based too, because it's like, what are you paying me to do?
Yeah. Exactly. Very nice. Finding that I was able to explore all of those things in drag really, I think, for a solid year, really started to shape who I was as a person. I felt more comfortable in my skin and wearing certain things and, doing certain things because, like we said before, I had lots of this stigma about just presenting a certain way for the sake of the people that I was performing for. I was performing for, General Mills all people in suits and things of that nature. There was a solid disconnect for multiple different reasons. On top of the fact that I was very young, on top of the fact that I was brown, on top of the fact that I was very gay, you know what I mean? And then still trying to win over these crowds. And so I found all of that in drag, and I started to experiment more with my culture and things of that nature. And then I just felt that I needed to birth a different part of me on stage. And that's why also many people ask why I don't do the magic and drag anymore, because I found that it was something that I could do the magic and the hypnosis and stuff as Victor and feel fulfilled. But if I took that part of myself and put it into KiKi, I'm not embracing the part of myself that I wasn't able to embrace for years and years and years, because I'm putting something else on top of it.
And you saw that because you had mixed the two together, and you just realized that you just felt as authentic.
I
didn't feel as authentic to myself.
I believe that's called growth.
Yes.
And what I've realized in a lot of places, especially in the Midwest and stuff, that once people get to know you as one thing, it's really hard for them to wrap their mind around you becoming a better version of yourself constantly, and that growth, and they want to keep you in that box. They want to keep you as that person. And it's like, that's great. And if you love that person, that's even better. But if you don't like that person, also, like, I'm not the person I was yesterday. I'm not the person I was 5 years ago.
Definitely,
and just because I was a very strong person 5 years ago at that moment, like I've had growth. Like I want to change. I want to evolve.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for people to. I don't think it's difficult for us to grow. I think it's difficult for other people to let us grow.
Yeah.
Which comes in turn by going to spaces where you feel surrounded by people that are supportive, people that are like you, people that inherently want you to move forward.
Yeah, they encourage your growth.
But also even in those spaces, you know, I've been in spaces, queer spaces that I've grown a lot, and then when I've reached my peak and I want to move to the next level, like they want to hold me back. And I'm like, I thought you were my friend.
Yeah, you can grow with me. Like, I'm not losing you.
Or bye.
Or bye.
You can keep me in that narrative for the rest of your life, but that's your narrative, not mine. So
So when you have drag daughters, like, what is that? Like, I would say mentorship or guidance.
The whole evolution of that from going to KiKi and stuff. Like, I feel like that's also like a step in a progress moving forward. Like, when did you decide that KiKi is strong and this is who I am and that's part of what I want to do, and now I want to like
once I was doing that transitional period of being comfortable in what I was doing in my skin and the people around me, I found that what I really loved most about drag was not the intrinsic part of drag or the things of it all, was that I did not have any of the cultural setbacks that I had as a magician. You know, as a magician, I have cultural setbacks. There is a immediate, oh, he's brown. Like, we've just never seen this before. You know what I mean? Or all of these other sorts, or he's gay, and I don't have any of those things in drag. And so once I kind of came to that conclusion, I started to embrace more of my culture and research it and do more of that sort of thing. Then one day I started just really saying fuck it all, and I started just doing Erykah Badu and Lettucey and all sorts of wonderful things and Lion King, and then someone one day looked at me and they were like, they said, these performances that you're doing now seem a lot more true to who you are, and they felt more natural for me on the stage
at that moment.
And so then I just changed my name and just kind of went with that. And then I came up with KiKi, because KiKi, by definition, means to laugh together as a group. And, like, I'm a comedian, so that made sense. And then Uchawi, which is Swahili for magic, because she's a magician. And so I kind of came up with this name and just kind of stuck
Bring together people with laughter and magic. I love all those words.
Love it all,
Which is definitely who you are.
Yeah, it was. She's something different, but the name is intrinsic to who I am.
Very intentional. You know, about like the type of show you want to present.
I love things that are intentional.
I do too.
I love things that are super intentional.
Every week I'm like, is that intentional? Do we do this on
purpose? I'm a very, 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 very intentional person with everything.
I try to be as well, and it's interesting because some people, especially like, in a space where I, lead people and I manage and I do these things, and I've had assistant managers that are like, I don't understand what you're doing. And I was like, that's because it's not up to you. Like, let me deal with that. But like, you just have to trust me and know. And then when it does come full circle, they're like, I totally didn't trust you. And like, now I understand and I see everything that you saw before. And I was like, it's because I do things with intention.
Yeah.
At least I try. I'm human. I fail at things sometimes too. So where did that evolution come from? Now, you're KiKi Uchawi. You are feeling a little bit more authentic. You're growing. You're having your moments and stuff. And then all of a sudden, like, you have, what, is it 2 or 3 drag daughters?
I have an ongoing list.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a couple that carry your name.
Yeah. There's a couple that carry my name, but I also,
Which to me, it's like mentoring drag daughters and doing that is one thing, and having stepchildren and having, whatever. But like having someone that carries your name, that's to me, it's like, fuck. Like, I definitely have to make sure that I'm
so what does that mean?
Due diligence.
Yeah, how does that?
Well, it started with. Well, I'm a very protective person. In general, and family means a lot to me. It wasn't something that I really had growing up, it is something that I had growing up, but not in the fashion that I wish I would have had it. Not with like the love and the support and all of the things. And so it started with Carmela, and she was working like at a Thursday night gig.
Hello, Carmela. We should have asked her to join today.
Yeah, she was performing on like a little Thursday night gig. And I don't really know what happened. I just like saw her, and she looked kind of like questionable, but she had all this energy. And
Carmela, if you're watching,
she know what she looked like. She know what she looked like.
Hopefully
She know what she looked like.
Hopefully she's answered some of
That's
those
a Miley
questions.
what's good section.
Yeah, but it was good. So we had gotten together and we went through some makeup and things of that nature, and yeah, and then we also just somewhat forwarded, like, so a lot of people don't know this about me. I'm a very private person, but also if you walk up to me or call me, I don't have any secrets, you know. I like is a weird complex. But so we developed this like really good relationship. Like me and Carmela, I call her like almost every other day, or if not every day. We have some long conversation, and half the time it's not even about drag. Half the time it's about her life or my life or the dogs or pets or you know, all sorts of manner of things. I think that there are, especially for brown children and for brown, I say children, for brown drag queens or people, you know, a lot of times a lot of us didn't have a lot of support growing up or support doing these things. And, you know, friends are one thing, but I think everyone deserves someone that will just be on their side to not only cheer them on, but to like tell them when they're wrong or tell them when they're not doing it, or let them see the big picture and honesty, you know, and all of these other things. And so we just kind of really developed that relationship. And then I had known Kiana for a really long time, and she just had started to put in the work of wanting to do drag, and so that conversation facilitated itself. And my Josiah or Kahan Uchawi, who he doesn't come out that often, but also very, very, very close to him as well. And I think it really just came, you know, like we're very much a family. You know, like we'll do Sunday dinners and we'll go out to eat and we'll like do things, or we'll take a trip, or like we'll call each other constantly and text each other, and not even about drag half the time. It's just about
your family,
having people to be. And I think for me specifically, having a drag family, like that's more what it's about. You know what I mean? Like Carmela could, you know, come out here tomorrow and start looking like who did it and why, but like that's still my child. You know what I mean?
It's
because
not even really about
it's
drag.
the relationship.
It's about family. It's about real family. It's about that connection.
She has my name, or you know, but I think but she has my name because of our relationship, not because of the type of drag that she's doing or what she's performing or anything of that. Although I mentor her in that too, you know, I'll give her advice and my opinions and things of that nature, you know, but she's also, you know, learned from many other different people about drag, because that's just how drag works. You learn from all sorts of aspects of different people. But yeah, the it's really just the relationship that we have outside of it all. And I think that's what's most important for that sort of mentorship dynamic.
That's great. Yeah. I want to shift a little bit and talk about you being the show director of Miss UBs. So this has been like a crazy year for everyone. You know, 2020 was full of lots of things. COVID, businesses shutting down, businesses closing forever. People, you know, using their platforms and their voices to really help a lot of things move along with progression, especially with BLM and, you know, which it's weird to talk about like civil rights movement in 2020 when like...
Or it should be such a non-issue. We should be so much further along, but we're not.
And it just is weird to say that, because I mean, even the civil rights movement that happened 50 years ago isn't the same one that's happening today, but it's still relevant and prevalent and like
highlights there's more work to do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that came out of that too. I mean, we had our own inner turmoils with queer organizations in the city, as well as queer spaces. I won't mention names of, you know, bars or organizations. But,
we don't give air to that.
Yeah, but I mean, that definitely, I think, set a precedent for a lot of people. And I know, for myself, you know, working as hard as I did for the past 4.5 years, 5 years for Woody's to be an inclusive, safer, diverse space has been a feat, but it didn't really come to fruition for me until this past year, where it's like, I had an opportunity to meet with a lot of other community leaders that I've known, but I've never really met outside of like, you know, a panel or all these things, but I got to come together. And like you said, I had that moment this summer with, you know, Moon and Cece and Korea, where it's like, here I am surrounded by other brown people, but other powerful, strong brown people. And I've definitely had to navigate my whole entire life with a bunch of white people. And I wouldn't say pander or like bow down, but like maybe dim my voice a little bit, dim my light, just, you know, to be able to sit at those tables and things. And here I was surrounded by brown people, feeling empowered, helping a lot. And it definitely like set a precedence for me to, I don't think I was really ready to be catapulted into like that position where a lot of people were messaging me, saying amazing things, but asking a lot of questions and asking a lot of hard things about me that like, what was I going to do and how could I help? And it's like inherently you want to and you want to do these things, but like I don't think I was really ready for that position.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like if it's not me, like who's it going to be? And also like, girl, God put you in this position. You're ready. Like you get up, put your boots on. Let's go. I know even Missy B's, they went through a transition where their old show director left. I don't really know why or how, but you jumped in and stepped in that position. What was that like? How did that come about? How did you feel? How do you feel now? Like, it's a lot.
Well, so what happened was the old show director had her household just has someone in it that is very, very, immune compromised for many different reasons. And also with that, had been doing it for 12 years. And so I think when me and her had these somewhat of these conversations even before COVID, but I think she was just somewhat ready to take leave in general. So she kind of recommended me for the position. She had known me for years before as an entertainer, as a magician, and things of that nature. So we had a little bit of a working relationship. And yeah, so we're here now. I think it's been. I won't say it's been easy. That would be many lives.
But also, anything great to me, like it's never easy. If you're truly doing something great and spectacular,
it takes work.
And you're making progression, moving forward, and growing.
Yeah,
it's never really easy.
I think the biggest challenge is that, like I said, I'm a pretty private person unless you come talk to me, which is.
Well, that's another question.
Maybe backwards, but...
No, it's like, how do you, like, and that's something that I've had to deal with, too. Like, I think I'm a very private person. I definitely wear my heart on my sleeve. And if you come talk to me, I would say that there's a lot of people who are like, oh my God, I can't believe you're so nice and you're so warm. And I'm just like, because from a distance, you seem a little standoffish, cold. And I was like, because I'm usually working.
Right.
Very much if you come...
Or thinking about work, sitting
down.
Yeah.
And it's not even like, I'm not even like really in my surroundings. I'm in my head, like trying to figure out the next steps of things that I'm doing because I try to be intentional. So it's like, it's funny, most people, I was like, and I always tell people, there isn't a person that I have ever met that doesn't like me. I'm sure there are plenty of people that hate me and say shit about me and whatever, but I guarantee you that if I were to meet them in person and actually have a conversation, they would walk away like liking me because I'm a good person. Like I'm nice.
Right, yeah.
I'm not as mean and scary as I'm hated. And I think it's really hard sometimes when you're in a position of leadership, especially new things or whatever, and especially being a brown person, you definitely have to hold your cards a little bit closer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that sometimes that can be off-putting, but also especially mapped onto the top of you wanting to be a private person and needing that space for yourself. And you're in a place where like people are always taking because they're always asking questions. Can I talk to you? Can I set up meetings? What can you do for me? I need this. I want this. Like do this. So
and on top of all of that, a lot of people don't also realize too, and I don't necessarily share this all the time because it's not necessarily an excuse. So I don't feel the need to talk about it. But, outside of just the drag shows alone, when COVID's not happening, and even now, I'm still doing virtual shows. I do about 4 virtual shows a week for different corporations and stuff.
That's incredible.
So I'm still still doing those. Yes. I'm still doing, when it's not COVID, we got a few private long distance magic shows and things that happen. I need a week, a shit ton of people. You know what I mean? That all want this same amount of attention. You know what I mean? So it's like when
they're constantly pulling your energy.
Right, when the party's over and the show's over and things of that nature, I'm very much like, I need my space, otherwise I cannot continue to do this. Mm-hmm. I have a battery, and it's like there's only a certain shelf life. And I think as far as Missy's is concerned, I think the largest part that is somewhat maybe daunting to me is that I think it's really just my duality. People don't know me that well. Because even beforehand, I wasn't really out. Like, I didn't frequent even at Missy's, I wasn't really there unless I was working, People don't know me that well. They don't know, where I'm coming from. They don't know about me. They don't know my history. They don't talk about even just these conversations we're having now. I don't do this a lot to people.
Well, 100%. Like, this is why I wanted to bring you on our show. Because I know that in my experiences with you, which has been very limited because you don't come out as often, and when you do, like, you're done up and people are needing your attention or whatever it is, so I don't really get to, and I'm always working too.
Yeah.
But I know that I've heard many different narratives about you over the past few months. But I wanted to have you on my show because I'm a person too that I've lived in a bunch of cities and I know what that feels like. And I know that somebody's narrative can just be someone's opinion based on some random weird interaction or someone else's opinion, which those aren't always real.
And I also think that, the position that I have, because it is at the establishment that it's at and because it affects so many people, people I also think are maybe they just don't know where I'm going. They don't know what the trajectory is. They don't know where the train is heading. Everything just seems like why this? Why this? Why this? Why this?
Well, it's also, you just want to tell us, like, well, that's not really a concern. That's my concern.
Yeah.
So why don't you just get on and
I was wondering.
We'll write together. We'll have fun.
And I think that's been a very large part of, like, my own personal anxiety is that I know that these feelings are out there and people are like, they just don't know. They don't understand. There's so much about me that they don't know. They don't know my professional history. They don't know what I am or am not capable of, where my mindset is, or my plans at the bar and what I plan on doing and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's just so much of a question mark for everyone else.
What would you
and
like
I think
to
that's
tell
a lot of anxiety for the community in general, and I get that.
What would you like to share for people that are watching that may have these thoughts or inclinings or feelings and stuff? Like, do you have anything specific that you would like to say to them?
I like go-tos.
Fuck you. Trust me, I'm amazing. Come to my show.
My philosophy is very, very simple, and it's also very possibly controversial. Everything is for the betterment of the show, in my opinion. I think that is the hard part of my position, is that people expect it to be, we have to include everyone and everyone has to do all these things and everyone has a place and everyone has a home. And although I definitely agree with that and there's a time and place for that, Missy's specifically, is still somewhat of a more of a theatrical experience in the idea of that we have these stages, we have these lights, we have these things. And I am someone that at the end of the day celebrates good art. Whatever that may be, whatever style that is. I've hosted so many burlesque shows. I've put together stripping events. I've done, obviously, drag shows. I've done comedy shows. I just like good entertainment.
Yeah.
And
I think it's so interesting. Like, I feel like, there's a lot of people that ride the fence in the city about, number one, I want something different. I'm so bored. Like, this is the same shit, blah, blah, blah. But then they're also, when you try to do that, they're like, well, if it's not broke, why are you trying to fix it? And I'm like, well, what do you want? Do you want something that's not broke with the same old stuff that you see all the time? Or do you want something new and fresh? Because you can't have both. Like, figure out, like, what it is.
And I think also the thing about, any sort of entertainment facility that is always difficult, but always provides the best entertainment is when, you have a strong hand in exactly what is being put on the stage.
No.
You know what I mean? And I think that for drag queens specifically, and this is where it gets controversial, is a very hard pill to swallow because we're taught in drag that everything is art, everything is ourselves, and all drag is valid. And although I believe all of those things, at the end of the day still, if the goal is to put on a show, then the show has to come first. That's not anyone as drag is any less valid or any less. But like,
what does valid mean? Because I mean, like, when you're playing Monopoly with your 6-year-old cousin and they have all this money, that money is valid. They're winning, but in real life, that's not real money. Like, it's useless.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is valid?
I mean, in my personal opinion, if we're just talking about drag specifically, there are drag queens that, thrive on the internet, that will just do all sorts of looks and amazing things, and they get sponsors and all sorts of things. And those people are literally amazing. More talented than me, because I'm not that good at my makeup. I know how to do one face, and that's it. And I got like 2 palettes, and that's all we've done. You know what I mean? So like that's a very, like, you can make a living, you can project art, you can inspire people that way. Does that necessarily mean you need to do a show? Possibly not, because there are other types of people that just do good work on stage. You know what I mean? They just do good work on stage. And then there's other types of people that get in drag, but maybe it's for community efforts. Maybe they are more on the bookkeeping side of things. Or maybe they're community faces. Like, you see them everywhere else, but maybe you don't see them on the stage because their best work is not on the stage. Their best work is rallying people to raise money, or their best work is, that sort of thing. There are so many different types of drag, and I think the biggest thing that we're all taught is that all of those things can be fit on a stage. because we all belong on a stage and this is our community, blah 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 blah. And it's like I just can't believe that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like there are people that do good work on stage and are performers on stage, and if you're putting on a show, that is what you consider. You know what I mean? All the rest of those types of drag are just as valid. You know what I mean? But as a show director, that's not my responsibility to include every asset of drag.
Yeah.
So
my responsibility is to put on the best show.
What is
On
that
a stage,
pushback
which is
from
what
the-
you've been given.
Right.
As a stage manager, you like on stage. What can you do on stage?
Yes.
It's great if you're a look queen and you can model, or if you can paint a face. But like, if you really believe that that's amazing, how do you translate that to on stage?
Like
And that's
some
what
of
I'm
my
looking for.
favorite
I 100%
performers
love
in
that.
the
I get
city
that.
are people that. Some of my favorite drag queens in the city are people that are not necessarily that great on stage, but I just love what they do. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I have to put something on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I have people that pay a cover to come in and sit down with a cocktail, and they expect a good show for an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I have to consider.
So what is it? What does that pushback look like from the community when you're in the show director role and you're setting the stage, you know, and selecting the entertainment, possibly? Like, what does that pushback from the community look like? Like, who is she? Like, to say this, to do this?
You know, I think that is just a matter of, you know, you can't please everybody. You know, like, there are so many great drag queens in this city. I mean, I did a count when I first started this job of just people that were working, doing gigs, things of that nature. The total was 48 of people actively working. I can't fit 48 people
Right.
even in a month. I can't do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just impossible. So even if I wanted to try to be fair, blah, 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 it's like it's just completely unreasonable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So then that's when tough decisions have to be made, and that's when that pushback happens, and that's something that I was very aware would happen when I took this job, because I know myself and I know what I would do and wanted to do. You know what I mean? And there's also the matter of, for me specifically, my long-term goal for Missy's is not for it to just be a place for just drag queens. You know what I mean? There are many other different types of entertainment in Kansas City. People that, like, whole communities of people that do different types of entertainment, whether that's comedy, whether that's variety arts, whether that's singing, that just don't have a place. And Missy's, you know, is the only queer space currently that has the tech of an actual theater, even how small our little stage may be. You know, that's something that people need to get to that next level, to travel and do all of these other things. You know what I mean? And I believe that, you know, trying to facilitate that on top of also knowing that, you know, we need a space for our drag queens, I can't fit everybody. You know what I mean? So that's when it comes down to what's best for the show, what's best for the crowd, you know what I mean? And giving everyone, yes, a chance to perform, but everyone, not just the drag queens. You know, there has to be a space for the comedians. There has to be a space for, you know, the juggler that does the thing that's really cool that no one would ever see because he doesn't have a home. You know what I mean? And
or a stage to perform
or a
on.
stage. Like, there's all of those things. There's that big picture of, you know, yes, we are a queer club, and yes, we do drag shows, but it's so much entertainment that happens. There's such a huge underground scene of entertainment. And as someone that is a variety entertainer that has worked in all of these different things, you know, I hosted burlesque shows for 4 years as Victor. And I've seen all sorts of things, and people will just take over these straight bars and things of that nature to do these things. And it's like, why have we not facilitated a place for this in Kansas, in our queer place?
Especially when you're thinking of, like Casey's queer, you know, individuals who want to perform and are being, you know, not forced, but their only outlet may be that straight bar that hires them to...
Or they feel the need to push themselves into drag to get themselves to where they want to go, even though that might not be true to their nature. You know what I mean? And it's a disservice to our community, because if the only time you can go out to any queer space in Kansas City and the only thing you can ever see is drag, you are being very underserviced by anyone that runs events in that city. If that's the only, like, if there's 5 bars and the only thing you can ever see is drag, there's mountains of different types of entertainers, you know, on a queer spectrum, you know, of different genders and non-binary genders and different types of art form that all just do different things, you know, that could easily be on any of these stages. And I think that's, if there was a passion project that actually means a lot to me, it will probably be that, as far as what I would want to leave at Missy's or for our city, is that, like, people, like, we have so much art here. We have a larger, just as large of an art scene, an underground art scene here as they do in St. Louis, but we would never see it because there's not a place for it. no one's facilitated a place for it.
I wanted to ask a little bit too, like, I know, stepping into this position, and you said that, coming into even Missy's as Victoria moving into KiKi, like, you were surrounded by, brown people that were, doing drag, that were strong, that built community and stuff. Do you still feel the support from, your peers, like, what would you say, Asia, Moulton, Amon, all the queens from Missy's that were there, when you came into where you're at now? Do you still feel the support of your sisters?
In general, support from the community of drag in general as a concept is very yes and no. I blame that partly on myself, again, because I'm somewhat of an elusive person. And also partly on the idea that, not everyone likes their boss. There's going to be people that just won't like what you did simply for the sake of your you.
Amen.
And so there's that. And also, I think that, I wouldn't say that I feel a whole lot of support from the community. I have one or two people that, are very close to me that are in the community that I feel. But you also just said that you're elusive,
so it's partially your fault. Like,
and I'm very aware of that. So it doesn't
care. Does it bother you?
It doesn't really bother me. No, it doesn't really bother me. You have to remember, I have been doing performance art when, the only person I knew or the only people I talked to was, my sister and my best friend, and that was it, because I was homeless on the streets, and then I'd go out and I'd busk on the plaza for pennies. You know what I mean? So it's like, support isn't something that I do art or business for. That's not something that I need to keep myself going. And it's one of the things that I really value about myself, that I'm so intrinsically motivated. But would it be nice? Yeah, but also at the same time, it's like, I feel like I don't think I would be able to push a narrative or make changes that I want to make in such a drastic measure if I was so concerned about whether or not people would support the decision. Because I trust myself to know that the decision will be better for the community as a whole. Whether not just this little faction, or just these drag queens, or these types of drag queens, or just these people, or just these artists. Or I trust myself to make these decisions because this is how I think. And as someone that's lived in the duality of the entertainment field in Kansas City for so long, I see it all.
I think also, you definitely were, extend in that position. So, obviously somebody believed in your decision making, which is something that I feel like I'm dealing with, especially now. It's like, you have to realize that when you are the boss, no matter how good of friends or how great a person or whatever you do, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like their boss, or is going to talk some shit or do all those things. But apparently, you were put in that position. So I guess the important thing is to remember, it's like, I want to help, and my things and my motivations are right, but I can't be concerned with your actual personal feelings, because that doesn't have anything to do with me. That has everything to do with you.
Yeah, and I think that's a part of it too. That I think that's the hardest part, especially as someone I'm a water sign, so I'm actually very emotional.
Fire sign, so I'm brother.
So I'm just all the energy all the time. I just burn a lot of sage, and I just try to let things kumbaya. But I think that is very, very hard. There is that transition of, I really, really love this person. You know what I mean? But my job isn't to any person now, it's to the community. And I think even drag queens sometimes think, when they hear the word community, they think drag queens. And it's like, no, the community is not just the drag queens, but like we said, all the fringe artists, but also the people that literally don't do any art and just need something fun to do on a weekend, or people that, they have such a toxic home life that the only time they can come out and have fun is at a show. And sometimes maybe it's boring for them to see the same thing every day of the week, when that's their only escape. And a lot of people need, like physically, from a therapeutic standpoint, need that type of escapism.
That stimulation.
That's very important to them.
Navigate through the life that they
have. And that is something that is also on my shoulders to provide those people. So I think that's unfortunately just one of the things that you can't be upset. You can't really concern yourself too much with individual people, because if your job is to service a community, you have to think of everyone in it, and not just, the people that either you like
Right
or the
next
people
to
that
you.
the people that people think that you should be servicing. You know, because I think that's been a large part of my problem is
Right.
that a lot of people think that I should be servicing this specific community when my brain is more.
I think that touches.
But it's also, I feel like that big thing with like community. It's like you're always saying that because like everybody has always serviced this community. Like what, like you said, like what about the rest of the community?
Yeah.
Like we get it. We've serviced them. They're good. Now they're not happy. Like let them be unhappy for a little bit so that other people can be happy.
Yeah.
They've been happy like too long. It's cool. They'll be fine. They'll get over it.
Yeah, and not even necessarily so much as like not being happy, but it's just like we have like Queen Priscilla's and we have Sidekicks and we have Woody's and we have Hamburger Mary's and we have all of these bars specifically dedicated mostly to drag queens. You know what I mean? If anyone wanted to come out and maybe they've just seen a lot of drag queens, maybe they had a trigger watching a drag queen. Maybe they had some like that is a thing. Sometimes people like. Because of whatever reason that they don't enjoy that, and that's not a bad thing. You know what I mean? Or maybe, they've just seen too many, but they still want to get out, but they also don't feel comfortable going into any of the straight bars, so they feel stuck because, like, if they're going to see somewhat of the same thing everywhere, and they just, like, there's so much to think about and unpack in those sorts of situations. And because of the position that I have at the bar that I have it at, and the prominence of the bar that I have it at, I think it's very, very important to think about all of those sorts of dynamics. And, I haven't put all of those plans in place just yet. I mean, they're in it, but they're like in a thing. But I think that's also the hard part is because it is COVID. I'm not able to just roll everything right out. You know what I mean? Right. I think people don't see the lineage. They don't see where it's heading. They don't understand, and they just feel unhappy because et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Or the people you want to bring on may not be able to be in that space at this time.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of complications that comes with that, but also like, at the end of the day, my position is to the community.
The entire community.
You know what I mean? The entire community as a whole, and to that extent specifically, is to entertain them.
It sounds like you have a lot of liberties in the sense of like directing the show and sort of like picking the guests that come on, and that's I would say a powerful position to be in as far as like setting the narrative for what that stage means for other people.
You make it sound so like glamorous and powerful, but like it's scary and it's hard.
Yeah, and
it's rough
dealing
and it
with
takes its toll.
That
and I don't know, like I'm sorry I'm getting in my feelings, but like even as a brown person, like it takes its toll and it's hard. I know that I've really been feeling it a lot lately too because you have so much riding on your shoulder and so many people looking at you, not just only looking to you, but like looking at you.
Yeah.
And always having their opinions and stuff, and it's hard. I think for people, I brought you on my show too because I wanted to talk about this because I know that I've heard some narrative about you, some not so good, but also like all I could think about was like, you don't understand that I don't know KiKi and I don't know exactly what KiKi does, but I know KiKi's name and I know KiKi's position, and to me, like, it's very difficult to be on top like that and have that position and have those things, and like I think people sometimes forget. And like also, because of your performance and what you do and how you like. And
also, I'm a drag queen too, and I think that's a large part of it too. Is that people
forget you're a human though.
I think that people, because, like I said, my career in drag has been so short and so limited. You know what I mean? I had times in the past where I would say I'm not going to do drag and I am going to do drag, and a lot of that just came with the fact that I wasn't sure if it was something I wanted to do because I literally had this whole other thing that I do. Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of that, but it's also like there's a lot of eyes on you. People are always checking if you're wearing a nail, if your wig's on right, and things, and expecting this part of.
Expecting you to always be perfect when like nobody is.
Yeah, drag queen is perfect, and then also it's like I personally believe a show director of any position could literally never be in a show. Like you could literally never be in a show because that's not what it's about. If you also happen to be a great entertainer, awesome, do you? But that's not what the position is about. The position is about how good your drag is or how long you've been in drag or what your experience is or who you know or anything about that. It's do you have the mindset to serve the community and and to put something on the stage that, to many different facets, especially at a bar like Missy's when we're up and going, there's 7 shows a fucking week. You know what I mean? Do you have the mental capability and the understanding of entertainment and the entertainment industry enough to do that work? You know what I mean? And I think that's where there's also a divide, is because I don't have these conversations with people also, because I'm a busy person and I don't have time, and people just, they don't know, and they just see a newer drag queen. I've only been doing this for 4 years. You know what I mean? They just see a newer drag queen and they're like, why the family, why the kids, why the this, why all of these things when she's possibly so, new or unprepared, blah, 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 blah. And I literally just chalk that up to the fact that I don't extend myself to people like that. And that's not something that I can be upset about. You know what I mean? And I also can't warrant to just start doing it because, again, I manage a lot of shit. I don't have time.
You have to get accessible with your time, and you don't have very much of it.
Yeah.
What do you do for self-care to release that tension? Or
weed. Lots of weed. Constantly. Bonds and pipes and blunts and edibles. It just kind of depends on the day. And I'm a really big movie person. So there's a whole room in my house that's just for movies, and I will shut everything off, and I'll put my phone in a different room, and I'll go everything.
What's a go-to movie for you?
So I'm not picky. I sometimes will literally just go through Netflix.
Do you have a genre, like comedy, horror?
Fantasy mostly.
Ooh, I love
fantasy mostly, but it's like I'll kind of just pick. Like, even if I've never heard of the movie, even if it has like 2 stars, I'm like, let's see. Like, let's go. And it kind of depends on my mood, because sometimes I want something pretty and new that was done in 2019 and looks really pretty on the screen, and sometimes I want to like see the boom mic in the back, and I want to see
I can see the cable.
Yeah, I want to see the set in the background. So it just kind of depends on my mood, but yeah, I'm a really big, and because everything that I do for fun has turned into work, so that's been the one thing that, unless I all of a sudden do acting, which I don't, I'm a terrible actor. Like, I'm a good actor if it's like a really weird character, but I don't see myself going into acting anytime soon, or being, like, I don't have an intrinsic motivation to be famous either. So I also don't do that. Like, I don't want to do RuPaul.
Wow.
I don't want to do acting.
An entertainer that doesn't want to be super famous.
I would like to be well known, and then I'm happy. Like, well known enough to like my peak is like if I can just get a Netflix special as a magician, just one, like an off-cuff one.
Right.
Like there's just that random comedian that no one's ever heard of, and they just have the Netflix special, and you're like, who the fuck is this? Like, if I could just get one of those, day made. Like, I'm fine, and then I would prefer to spend my life, because I do lots of private events. I really like doing that sort of thing where you just kind of come in, they don't know who you are, but they know that you're a big deal and that you're really good at what you do, and then you leave and you never see them again, and they don't see you again.
You just collect the check and go, bye,
thank you so much.
So you've been doing these virtual shows for businesses. Like, what is that like compared to you used to go in person and do them? So how has that changed your performance?
It's okay. Personally, I love it. Because I don't have to get out, and then I can just go right to my fridge after. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to do any, because there's a lot of setup. Like, there's a lot of setup in these magic and hypnosis, especially like magic. Well, even hypnosis. I'm bringing, from my house too. Like, packing the shit in my car. I'm bringing lights and truss and staging and chairs, and I'm bringing microphones and I've got a full, it's a full show that I do for people, and I have to provide all these equipment, because half the time they're just in, the banquet hall of the Marriott, who has one speaker from forever ago. You know what I mean? And I'm a very production heavy person, so I'm like, this isn't going to work. So being able to do all of that just kind of in a room, and also you can kind of cheat a lot more too, which is nice, because there's not people in front of you, and there's a cutoff, so you can bitch things and there's a lot, it's just easier. It doesn't give you the sensation of, the only sensation I miss is after the show, when people come up to you and they're, oh, it was so good, blah 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 blah, yada yada yada, and that sort of
that energy,
that sort of thing, the bow and the standing ovation and all of that of it all is nice. And I kind of live for the traveling too, because I usually travel in the Midwest area, just because it's fun. It's a fantasy that I like to live. But other than that, it's
I don't blame you.
When it comes back, it'll come back and I'll be happy. But for now, I'm also it's nice to experience this different thing. And it's very productive for me when I also really need to be in Kansas City, so I can get what I want done at Missy's done, and kind of set the foundation for all of that.
So I want to touch on something as a performer and as a drag performer. There's this like fetishization that can come with being a drag individual and being seen that way. Like, do you have individuals who reach out to you in that way? It's like,
ooh, that fetish.
that fetish. Like, I want KiKi. I don't want Victor. I want KiKi. Like,
I want you to wear a top hat and pull a rabbit out of my ass.
Exactly.
And
like,
fuck me.
You've had especially at colleges. Many times.
Oh my god, you're like, bitch, I'll saw you in half. Get over here.
It's not so much the magic shows, it's usually the hypnosis shows.
Oh.
It's someone that was in the audience and they're like, so can you do that to me? Yeah, it's very.
Am I blushing? I feel like I'm blushing.
There's quite a lot of that. It was
How does
something.
that make you feel? Is it like,
I like the attention.
Funny? Is it like, I'm into it? Like,
I like the attention, and way back, there was a time in my life where I pretty much really almost expected it for the end of my night.
Like, I gotta get twice ready. Oh,
yeah. So that was a time. Those were times. But as far as drag, I think people have, and I may have just not noticed it or paid it any attention. Because I sometimes look back and I'm like, I think he was hitting on me. But also, like, so in drag, and especially on a mic, you know, I'm, like any other drag queen, very dirty and very loud and, you know, sexual. But also very everything that I joke about and say is very the opposite of what I'm actually into. Because it helps me in the characterization of it all. If I detach myself from it completely, I can have more fun with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you
walk up to what you say.
Because then everything I'm saying, even to them, it may sound serious, you know, or that, she really, but for me, it's like, this is so much.
This is part of who KiKi
This is so much not a thing that it's funny for me. And when something is funny for you and fun for you, then that feeds into your audience. They pick up on that energy. And that intrinsically makes them laugh. So like that sort of comedic strategy I use, but like I don't actually want to do any of the things. And I think some people like maybe sometimes think that that's a thing, and maybe they try to, but also like after the show, I'm a very thank you so much. Bow, leave.
Bitch, I gotta go to Taco Bell. I'm not eating all day.
I'm a very like, and the show's over. Have a good night.
My Uber Eats is here. I gotta go.
You know, I'm a very, very that person unless I'm literally out of town. In which case, I'll try to, you know, say hi and yada yada yada. So no, I've not really experienced that, but I've also not really ever looked for it. I have very few. I have had very few partners that have started, and by few I mean like less than 5 in general, that have started because I was in drag.
Okay.
It's just so counterproductive to that side of me. Yeah. But no, so I don't know. I can't speak on that whatsoever. I know that that's a thing, but I'm just, and also I think I sometimes shut people down in a very kind of like business way, because maybe also I think that they're joking because I'm joking.
Right,
I think
you're not serious about that, right?
You know what I mean? And they're like, you know, let me take you home, and you know.
Can we still my Taco Bell first?
Yeah,
we're gonna split the taco.
You can take me through drive-through.
Yeah, it's kind of very, very that, you know. So maybe I just also didn't catch it because I just am so like not in that headspace,
right? Yeah. Not giving air to it, yeah. And
then another part of it, this may be TMI, but like also like me personally, I'm a very pansexual person, but I tend to lean towards more like feminine people or feminine bodies to a certain extent. So I also just like have such a disconnect with the fact that like people, like guys will actually hit on me because I grew up for so long not exploring that side of me, you know. So I think I'm also just like socially just like stupid in the idea that, oh wait, they're hitting on me. This is a thing that's happening right now, because I'm just not used to it, and I'm just usually so in business mode that I'm like, okay,
right, yeah, I'm so clocked in, I'm still working.
Yeah. Like, I'm so out of the idea of that.
Well,
not that I'm not into the idea of it. I'm really into the idea of it. I'm just like not aware. I'm not aware that people just hit on people at bars and then we go home together. Like that seems like a fantasy movie. Like this seems like Sex in the City. Like
where is the app?
These are apps. I'm the one with the torso. Find me. Message me.
I'm the sea of torso.
Yeah. I'm the one with the slightly darker nipples. They're like yeah, it's very that.
Well, Victor, I want to thank you for coming on Unboxed and sharing this time with us and talking about your craft. I think that's great, and I wish you all the best. And it's exciting to hear what you have coming up for Missy B's and the potential for other performances and individuals to practice their craft and to share it with other people and giving them a stage. Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, thank you. I'm really happy I got to be here. I don't usually talk a lot about myself. So I felt that it was.
Then why did you? Yeah, why did you?
I felt that if there was any version of myself giving a why do you do things the way that you do them, and who are you, and what the fuck is going on, sort of situation, that this would be the very best way to do it.
It was a good experience,
right?
I'm sad that we actually went over on time, but there's a whole slew of things that I still wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about
You can also find more information on my TED Talk at tedtalk.com or on my book. The first 10 pages are on Amazon.
Hold on, add the card.
Well, we'll have to have you and family on. That would be fun.
That would be fun. Would you come back on our show again?
Yeah.
This was fun. I'll have to see what your dietary restrictions are next time, because I feel like I'm not a host for not giving you anything but water. Here's some water.
No, I'm
tempting you with all this stuff when you're
during the daytime. I'm very this is so bouge, but I'm very cheese, crackers, and water.
And then some of that today.
And then at night, it's like a Sonic, like a burger and a mozzarella stick and some tater tots and a shake.
One mozzarella stick, tater tots.
Yeah, a few boneless chicken wings.
Yeah.
Not a full meal, but just different pieces of all the meals.
Nibbling bits, I love it.
Yeah, Sonic buffet.
I'll take the lower 1/4 of the entire menu, please.
What are the add-on items?
All of those. And then I would this is actually a thing that I do. I'll always try something new. So I'll get my regular meal, which is 4 items, and then I'll try something new, and then I'll get a different thing that's new, in case I don't like the first one, in case that first one's gross. Then I have the second one. Yeah. And if they're both good, then I'll put one in the fridge and I'll eat it.
I get snacks, and sometimes I get backup snacks in case I don't like those snacks.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel that so hard.
Just in case the mozzarella sticks are cold, y'all have some chili fries.
Victor, where can everyone find you?
Wait, let's talk real quick. Upcoming up for Missy B's. How many nights a week are they open, and what's going on? What are some new shows and things that are happening that you want people to come out and see?
So Fridays and Saturdays we have the Stars of 39th Street, which is a new show that I put together with a specific cast of people. It's Dee Dee Comes-Well, Tajma Stetson, Carmela, Lana Lux, Boy Boy.
I love Boy Boy.
I know.
Gosh dang it, they're gonna kill me. Victor Shawn, Cynthia Dahl, and
that's a lineup now.
Yeah, that's a really good lineup.
And God fucking damn it. Am I the 8th person? Did I name 8 people?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting one, and they're going to be mad at me. I'll put an extra $20 on your check. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's a thing. The Stars of 39th Street. So that's a super fun show. We've got lots of new tech at Missy's and things of that nature, which is really, really fun that I've installed. And some funner things happening with that show specifically. This week is the last week for the On the Rise competition to be both on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So it's a variety competition show. So there's comedians and jugglers and variety artists. Last week we had someone cut a cucumber with the machete on our arm, and then we had someone do some comedy, and we had some singers, and we had someone do a series of impressions that was really, really fun, and all sorts of things. So that's a competition that will happen, and starting next week it'll be just Wednesdays, and then after that that competition is over, I'll be unveiling the new Wednesday night show. Next Thursday is the first Thursday that we don't have the competition, so we're unveiling a cabaret show. It's called Soiree. So it's no drag and no singing whatsoever, but it is very French cabaret style, very circus themed. So
Nice.
we'll have a mime who is one of the last few professional mimes in the world, who's still based in Kansas City.
Wow.
We have a juggler who can juggle like machines and all sorts of things,
Wow.
sometimes on a unicycle. It's really crazy. We have a pole dancer. We'll have some live music happening. I'll probably be there as Victor doing some things, making people appear out of boxes or something like that. I don't really know. And yeah, so that starts next Thursday.
Wow.
That'll be our new Thursday night show.
Missy B's is open until midnight. Is there a cover for these, or?
So on Fridays and Saturdays it's 5, and then the cabaret show will not have a cover.
Okay.
And then the Wednesday night doesn't have a cover. And then Sunday nights is Icon, where different we have the girls in the community will host it. Just different people doing different things. It's where we get a chance to have some new people come to Missy's and try out the stage and do different things, and get a chance to shine. And they dedicate each night to a certain iconic either artist or genre.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, so this Sunday we won't be doing that because we'll actually have a takeover with Jenna Westanowick, who will do our Valentine's Day show. But then after that, I think the icon is Sunday is Jaharia, because it'll be her birthday, and then after that we're gonna have an all drag king night, which will be dedicated to, I think, boy bands.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah, so we got lots of things happening.
I actually have yet to be to Missy B since they have remodeled and opened after COVID.
You share the same business hours as us.
Kind of hard, right?
It's like when I often, like, the last thing I want to do is go like to the bar, and then I end up at Woody's, and I'm like, why are you here? I'm like, well, because I drank for like health. So it's like difficult for me to want to go somewhere else. But I really need to check those out. Those sound really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have Venmo, Instagram, anything that you want to share?
Find me somewhere. I don't know. Google.
Google.
I got too much. I got too much stuff
Look for the
to
torso
list,
with the
and
dark
too many
nipple.
platforms, and too many names, and too many aliases.
I mean, if you can see me out in public, you want to walk up and hand me a 20,
I
like,
look
thank
like
you.
this. Find my face. VictorLeon.com, etc.
Yeah.
Find me on TED Talk. Find me on.
Yeah.
Find me on Pornhub. Gotta do all platforms.
Exactly. Ace, is there anything coming up for Woody's?
This Saturday we have U-Haul with the girlies. It's our female identity party. It's also going to be Ursa. She's one of our new staff members, but it's her birthday this Saturday. It's also Valentine's Day weekend, so come out, hang out, have some fun. This Thursday, I think we have, which is, tonight is Wednesday. So we have Chad Slater with karaoke.
Nice.
Starts at 8. We're open till midnight, mask required. Thursday, I think Sir Queen will be with us again, DJing, having some fun. And we are also a drop-off space for White Rose People's Pantry. So if anybody has anything that is non-perishable for food, any personal hygiene products, any blankets, any coats, shoes, socks especially, anything like that, we are a drop-off space. It's right when you come in the front door. You don't even have to come in. You can just drop it off. We also have a bunch of free Safer Sex kits that you can come in and just take for free.
Yeah.
Follow us on social media. Woody's KC on Instagram. I believe that Zach, our social media director, just started us a TikTok a few weeks ago. I'm not that young, so I don't know how that works.
I'd have downloaded it.
Yeah, if you're a TikTok person, follow us on TikTok. I'm sure it's like Woody's KC or something like that. Thank you again for joining us, Victor. I appreciate you coming on our show. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while. I think they're awesome.
That's a great conversation.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
Don't forget to know your status. You can get tested at KC Care. You can walk in 2 to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or 2 to 5 on Friday. Or you can do it at home. You can order a free at-home HIV test kit. It's going to be the bottom of the page. Just scroll down, select that. You can also get a free Safer Sex Kit, a love box. It comes with dental dam, different types of condoms and lube. A lot of fun in there, especially if you've never done any of those things before, like a condom or a dental dam. It's a nice way to try it out.
Yeah.
For free. All right, thanks, y'all.